All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick's on the Power. So this is probably my most requested prediction video, and that is my predictions on the Classic Physique Olympia 2018. So we'll start this video just like we started the other prediction videos, and that is going to be the list of official qualified competitors for the 2018 Classic Olympia at 2 weeks out. So we've got Darnell Ferguson, Breon Ainsley, Chris Bumstead, George Peterson, Arash Rabar, Danny Hester, Robert Timms, Stan DeLongnu or Stanimal, Medhi Larajani, Matteo Vu, Courage Opara, Danny Yunin, Haithon Al-Sadiq, Steve Laureus, Peter Duper, Regan Grimes, Ali Shamsgamar, Terrence Ruffin, David Hoffman, Panex Pierre, Wesley Vissers, Khalid Chikori, Divine Wilson, Aaron Feudal, and Omar Batista. So this is an extremely stacked Classic Physique lineup this year in 2018. Obviously, it began back in 2016, so I'd say of these 3 years at the Olympia, this is probably the best Classic Physique Olympia lineup we've ever had. So I think this year's Classic Physique Olympia will be extremely tough to predict, simply because of the fact we have so many new guys that we haven't seen on stage next to last year's top six. The Breons, the Bumsteads, the Arash Rabars, the George Petersons. We haven't seen a lot of these guys compared to them. We haven't seen a Wesley Vissers compared to these guys. We haven't seen a Steve Laureus compared to these guys. We haven't seen a Regan Grimes compared to these guys. So it's very tough to say who's going to come out on top when we've never seen these guys go head-to-head before. So that's why this year's Olympia is so exciting, is because we really don't know what's going to happen. But I'm going to try my best to predict how some of these guys are going to place this year in this video right now. So let's go ahead and look at last year's top five. So you had Breon Ainsley winning, obviously, Chris Bumstead taking second, George the Bull Peterson taking third, Arash Rabar in fourth, Danny Hester in fifth, and then you had Terrence Ruffin in that sixth place spot. So before we get to the top six from last year and talk about how those guys will place this year, let's talk about some of the newcomers to the division, how I think they're going to place this year, and which guys I think will do the most damage. So the three guys that I have my eye on the most are going to be Regan Grimes, Steve Laureus, and Wesley Vissers. So first we'll get to Regan. So I think of the three guys, Regan Grimes has the best shot of cracking the top six at this year's 2018 Classic Physique Olympia. I say that because I think he's the most refined and experienced bodybuilder on that stage. I think he has the most muscle mass, the most muscle maturity. I think he's going to have the best overall presentation on stage, seeing as Steve Laureus and Wesley Vissers are both relatively new. They're still learning how to pose, how to tan, how to come in dialed in for a show. As we saw with Steve Laureus at the New York Pro, that's something that he definitely has an issue with. So of the new guys, I think Regan Grimes is definitely the number one guy to be watching out for. Even though Wesley Vissers is my boy, I love Wesley Vissers. He won my 2017 Mr. Golden Era competition last year. And he's certainly one of my favorite physiques on that stage. But that being said, I think the legs need to come up. I think the conditioning needs to be improved. And it might be another couple years before Wesley is really a top threat to the Mr. Olympia title, really a top threat to that top six. But I do think we'll see Wesley in the top 10, just maybe not necessarily top six at his first Olympia ever. Now, next, let's get to Steve Laureus. So Steve Laureus has been at the top of a lot of people's lists. Before he even did a Classic Physique competition, people were saying he's the next Mr. Olympia. He's God's gift to the Classic division. And then he came to the 2018 Pittsburgh Pro, where I think he looked less than impressive. And then he switched over and did the 212 division at the New York Pro, where he looked terrible. He looked awful at that show. So I made videos about both those shows, after which a lot of people sent me messages saying him and his trainer were talking a lot of trash about me for giving him negative publicity when he was on the same team as me, being Redcon 1. So first of all, I'm not going to show any bias or give any special privileges to anyone just because they're with the same supplement company as me. The fact of the matter is he looked terrible in New York, so that's what I said. And he looked less than spectacular in Pittsburgh. So that's what I said. I'm just going to say exactly what I think, regardless of who you are or what company you're with. And that being said, he is no longer with Redcon 1. And that's all I'll say about that. I'll just let that speak for itself. So do I think Steve Laureus is top six material at this year's 2018 Mr. Olympia? No, I do not. Based on what we've seen from Steve so far, a less than average showing and then a terrible showing, I don't see anything suggesting that Steve is going to be a serious threat to the 2018 Mr. Olympia. I just don't see it. Yes, he's got a crazy small waist. Yes, he's got good legs. But to be honest with you guys, I don't think he has the stage presence. I don't think he has the polish of a professional yet. I don't think he has the conditioning where it needs to be. And I'm not really overly impressed with him up until this point. I've always kind of thought he was a social media guy that was overpromised and underdelivered, particularly by Louis Marco. And even from the beginning, when he joined Redcon 1, I was asked to make a video kind of pumping him up and giving him some more notoriety. And I felt that Louis Marco had already done enough of that. And I hadn't really seen anything from him on stage yet. So I wasn't going to, pump this guy up when I didn't really believe in him that much. So I think, honestly, Steve is going to be pretty much a non-factor at this year's Olympia. So let's get back to the top 6 here. Now, like I said, this is going to be extremely difficult to predict because we haven't seen these guys compete against each other. So I'm going to go with David Hoffman from Germany, another new guy. I think he's going to come in 6th place here. I think he's going to be a top 6 guy. He's very impressive. And I think he's going to be a guy that surprises a lot of people and cracks that top 6. So I'm going to go with David Hoffman in 6th. I'm going to play it safe here and go with Regan Grimes in 5th. Now, a lot of people think Regan's going to come out of the gate and win this Olympia. I think Regan is going to do very well. I think, like I said, I think he's kind of a miniature bodybuilder at this point. I think it's coming down to, people really need to decide what they're looking for out of classic physique. Do you want a miniature bodybuilder like Regan, or do you want a guy that's, all about classic? I think Regan has great lines, great structure, but I've said it before, I'll say it again. I do think that Regan is a guy that probably belongs in men's open bodybuilding. He's got the frame to be a bigger guy. He's got the frame to be successful in men's open. Now, it's really just going to be a matter of what the judges like. If they prefer a bigger, denser, more muscular physique like Regan's in classic, then they'll probably reward him in classic, and he'll probably do very, very well. But on the other hand, it could be a matter of the judges don't want a physique that big as Regan's in classic, and they could ding him, and he could place very, very poorly. So I'd place him in the middle, probably somewhere around 5th, until we really know exactly what the judges are looking for and how a physique like Regan's would stack up against a smaller guy like Breon Ainsley, or a guy like Chris Bumstead. We haven't seen that on stage yet in the classic physique division, so it's really up for debate. So I think I'm changing up my predictions a little bit from the last video that I did at maybe 9 weeks out when I did a classic prediction video. I think 4th through 1st, there's a high probability we're going to see the same 4 guys in those top 4 spots, but maybe changing where they placed. So George Peterson and Arash Rabar were 3rd and 4th respectively last year. And I think George Peterson looks incredibly impressive this year. I mean, he's just crazy big. Everything about him just looks super impressive. And I think he's definitely a solid top 4 guy. Arash Rabar, the recent pictures and videos that I've been seeing of Arash, he looks very impressive. And I do think he's got what it takes to be a top classic guy. And now it's hard for me to really see him slipping out of that top 4 based on what I've seen from him getting closer to the Olympia. So I'm actually going to keep Arash in 4th and George Peterson in 3rd. Then we get to 1 and 2. So 1 and 2, Breon Ainsley and Chris Bumstead. Everyone knows I'm a big fan of Chris Bumstead. I'm also a big fan of Breon Ainsley. I want to see a new champion in classic physique. Nothing against Breon Ainsley, but I would love to see the division change a little bit. A bigger structured guy like Chris Bumstead with the ability to hit a vacuum pose that Breon doesn't seem to have. So Chris Bumstead is the underdog at this point. A lot of people are expecting Breon to repeat. A lot of people are saying Breon is much better than Chris Bumstead. He has a better back, he has better biceps, etc. So I'm going to bet on the underdog, and I'm going to have Chris Bumstead winning in 2018 and Breon taking 2nd. Now, the safe bet would probably be to say Breon's going to win, but I'm going to go ahead and take a chance here and say Bumstead is going to take it. I really believe in the potential of Chris Bumstead, and I think he's going to do very, very well this year. So if you're watching this, Chris, please come correct and do not make me eat my words here. Don't let Breon, beat the brakes off of you in this one. So those are my predictions for the top 6 at the 2018 Classic Physique Olympia. Thank you guys for watching the video, and please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.